Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, student. Thank you very much for joining today's session. My name is Khurram Iqbal. I'm the Education Manager at ACCA Pakistan Karachi office. So I welcome you all in the second session of the Bridging the Gap webinars. And today's webinar is basically will focus the Strategic Business Leader exam. So all students who are here, right, and preparing yourself for the strategic business leader exam for June 2021. So you are very fortunate that we have a guest speaker with us who will be talking to you on the topic that is innovation, performance excellence and change management, which is a very important and core area in terms of syllabus for strategic business leader. So let me introduce you our guests for today's session. I welcome Mr. Zishan Shahid, who is the partner forensic and SNSO, Deloitte Yusuf Adil Chartered Accountancy. Zishan is an executive director with 14 years of experience in advisory and consulting with Deloitte Pakistan. As part of his role in consulting, Zishan looks after the strategy and operations under the leadership of Deloitte Pakistan. Zishan is an associate chartered accountant from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan. So thank you very much, Dishan, for taking out your time from the busy schedule. I know you are still out somewhere, at a client location. You have been able to log in. So again, thank you very much, for taking out your very important time of, for our ACCA students. And I am very much sure that with your presence, with your experience and knowledge, our student will get a lot of benefit in terms of the understanding this today's topic. So without wasting
Sure.
any further time, I hand over this session to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Uh, just a few words. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Just a few clarification. I think the profile was a bit old when we did the leadership conversation back in 2018, or maybe even before that. I'm actually partner in the firm, and the firm is now an independent correspondent firm of Deloitte Touche Tohmatsu Limited. I'm also fellow member of Chartered Accountants Institute of Pakistan and an associate member of the England and Wales Institute (ICW) and a certified fraud examiner. But that's all irrelevant. Thank you, ACCA leadership, for having me sharing my thoughts on some very key aspects of innovation, performance excellence, and change management. And I read through some information that is good to be shared with the institute, with the students that are entering into the either the education side at this stage and the market which is rapidly changing. So it's a good subject to study, and innovation is something that, although it's arguable that whether it can be ever taught, but at least the brains of students should be should have that spark of knowing that where innovation matters and what is actually it is. I'll just briefly touch upon what my thoughts are on these three keywords that are out there. Innovation is something, doing something in a new way, which is much more efficient than the pre-existing way of doing things. That's a very basic definition that I can share. Perhaps there are more ways of categorizing it, but I would not limit it to technology only. Innovation can be non-tech or low-tech, and performance excellence is something that should be at the foresight of every executive that is out there working. It can be scientifically measured. It can be there is literature around the framework of improving performance excellences. I'm sure the students will read it and study it more formally than it has been studied in the past. The benefit of a new subject is always that the new graduates of ACCA, the new graduates of these subjects are going to bring to the market new knowledge, which they can get a chance to study academically. And change management is something, it's a bit underrated, I believe, as a subject at foundational level or professional level studies. Um, Mostly, whatever you are doing in the market is change management. You are introducing. Sorry, uh, Okay. So the change management is something that most executives, either in the practice side or on the or in the industry side, they are doing. Either systems are being changed, or you are part of the team who is reviewing systems that are supposed to be changed. And systems are basically uh, processes and people interacting in a different way to achieve a different objective. And that's where introducing any sort of amendment requires change management. So that is a very crucial skill to have to scientifically approach the process of change management, to be attuned towards the sensitivities that are related to it. And I'm glad that it is being taught at some level. I believe all professional qualifications should include at least change management in some manner in their management skills. So that's these are some thoughts that I can share, and I believe I'll hand over the session to the moderator to carry this further. I believe.
Right. Thank you very much, Zishan. So before we proceed further, I request all the students who have joined today. So if you have any questions, right, you can put your question in the question panel, right, and we'll take your question during the session. So whatever the question comes to your mind, please put your question in the question panel. So Zishan,
Yep.
my first question to you is, it is regarding outsourcing and, shared services. So in today's time, due to technology, a lot of organizations are moving towards outsourcing or moving towards shared services model. Especially, there are lots of countries providing cheap labor like India, Philippines. So first of all, what is the difference between outsourcing and shared services? One. Secondly, could you please also put some light on what could be key reason why organization now moving towards outsourcing and shared services, and are there any risk and downside to it?
Yeah. There's a lot of questions packed into one, I must say.
Yeah,
So I'll just share my thoughts sequentially, and if I miss out anything, so feel free to point out, and then
right.
I'll be happy to respond. First, some thoughts around outsourcing and shared services. So outsourcing can be is a concept that can be applied to any level of work that people are doing. Even this, for example, C-suite level services can be outsourced. You can sort of provide services as a CFO, and or even sometimes there are CEOs on duty deputation as well. So outsourcing is where you are engaging a professional through the means of direct hiring or through a platform or some other service provider, where that professional is going to provide you services mostly related to a singular object or a project, and then it's going to end. Shared services, on the other hand, is a bit sort of like a facilitated arrangement, mostly on a continuing nature. Uh, for example, your payroll services can be, sorry, that's not an appropriate example. Shared services can be, uh, you have your corporation is segregated into different offices, possibly spanning the entire country or the multiple countries in a region, and the way you handle it is that you don't have separate HR people sitting in different countries. You have one HR department which is serving the entire region per se. And a more common example is IT services. Like for example, I remember back in 2000, because shared service is not a new concept; it's a very old concept. So big multinationals started going towards shared services possibly 2 to 3 decades from now, and the way it was most commonly seen to materialize was through technology service provision or finance function. So where multiple countries were centralized into one location, and then all the processing or all the entries were passed from there. So when you go towards an outsourcing model, it's you lose sort of control and you're more reliant on the service provider. Shared services is something that is more in your control and serving your objectives, and how to uh, uh, strategically manage a larger region or multiple operations. What are the risks associated? In outsourcing, obviously, the biggest risk is that whatever skill that you have outsourced, you don't have access to that skill once that outsourcing arrangement is over. Shared services is something that is under your control, so that risk is not there. However, shared services also has its own set of risks. For example, if you have a multinational, and it's a real example by the way, you have a multinational and their accounts function is centralized in Singapore, and you know the nuances of the manufacturing sector in Pakistan, so you are more familiar with how uh, certain entries are supposed to be recorded, certain transactions are supposed to be classified, and how they should be presented in your financial statement. And the shared service center does not care, honestly speaking. They're looking after Philippines, they're looking after Japan, they're looking after China, they're looking after you, the entire Middle East. So they're treating everybody in the same lens. And they're only concerned about eventually how our US standards compliance is going after. So the local operation face this challenge that they have to submit locally their financial statements with a different regime. And so shared service center is sort of challenging where you need a customized solution for each jurisdiction. And it could be inefficient in some way, but I'm not really in the favor of it being predominantly inefficient. But it can be inefficient where you have very small tasks which are dependent upon regional approval. So that's one of the areas. I'll give you an example that sometimes a simple issuance of a power extension cord can require approval from Switzerland, and that's also a real example. So these are some of the thoughts that I believe I answered most of your questions. And with respect to those countries, the level of services that are currently being provided, there is potential of a much larger set of services that can be provided as outsourcing and shared service providers. And I think Pakistan has a very unique opportunity of acting as a service provider in outsourcing more niches. Traditionally, only customer support, finance, or HR has been a topic of outsourcing and shared services. But I think Pakistan can export much more diverse set of and uh, services. We have a large number of quality finance professionals which can be engaged first upskilled and then engaged in providing a lot of services that are centrally being done from US right now or UK in the advanced market. So it has a lot of potential. This is not the topic of today's discussion, so I won't delve into much deeper. But there's a lot to be done over there, except especially in the data side of things. So I hope I got most of your question answered.
Thank you very much, Zishan. You have covered all my questions. So we have a question from the student, Zishan. Amir Shafiq has asked, do companies consider to invest in crypto in Pakistan?
Is a topic of recent interest. Companies don't take that sort of decision lightly. If you talk to any person who is handling the treasury department of any Pakistani company, they are dealing with banks which few renowned people in technology call dinosaurs. So we are trying to we अभी तो हम यानी कि I'll give you an example. Okay, so there's a very renowned asset management company. So they have this mobile app. So and I recently had this experience. I pressed the button. I want to redeem. Okay, I've got about X amount of money in your mutual fund. There's a very prominent button, redemption. So technically, it's the same bank, and the asset management company is also owned by the same bank. I don't know how that legally works, but it does. So if I press the redemption button, the next instant my bank account should be credited with the amount, but that doesn't happen. So we are doing this on Saturday. On Monday after 11 a.m. or something, I get a message that your redemption request has been received, and in 2 3 days time, I get the money in my bank account. What is actually happening? What's happening is that it's not actually technology at play here. The app is just transferred the manual form into digital form, and it's just taking the request to somebody who came in on Monday at 9 a.m., saw their log, saw my redemption request, possibly printed it out. I can expect the same. So they processed it in the same old-fashioned way, and then got to do that. So we are living in that environment. I'm talking about 2021 and possibly last weekend. So no, last weekend from this weekend. So we are living in that era, no matter how strongly we'd like to believe. So crypto तो अभी इस वक्त जो है ना वो उस डिबेट में ही नहीं है कि whether it is a permissible or admissible mode of investment for the treasury function, because इनिशियली स्टेट बैंक और एफआईए की जो डिस्क्रिप्शन होती थी थोड़ी बहुत, तो वो आती थी ऐसे जैसे कि पॉसिबली इट्स इलीगल, but then we learned that it's possibly not illegal. It is just not accepted anymore. Banks are actually uh, you can't do a credit card transaction on a crypto exchange. They are specifically prohibited. So there's a lot of confusion around that subject. So if this is happening on the regulatory scale, then you can't expect the companies, treasury people to start investing in crypto. If they do, they will probably be risking the reputation of the country, company. If tomorrow the government says that no, we are done playing with games, crypto is banned, then you risk inviting regulatory enforcement action.
Right. So we have one more question from student, Anas Khan. He has asked very straight question. Can we call stock chain shared service provider?
Can we talk about in the service? Uh, See, the topic that we were discussing in the first question you said was a shared service.
Yeah.
Shared service has a different connotation to it. Shared service implies that there is a service that needs to be provided. Traditionally, it was provided in a separate office in each location. So I'll give you an example of HR. I can give you an example of finance department. So sometimes, if you have offices in 4 cities in Pakistan, you might have a finance department in 4 cities. But then you started that, okay, no, we will only have a finance department in Lahore. They will remotely connect to everybody, and then they're going to be interlinking and everything. And we don't need finance people sitting in 3, 4 cities. Everything will be served from Lahore, or everything will be served from Karachi. So this is what you mean by shared service provider. So stock exchange is a service provider, but it will be called a shared service provider if it was catering to 2, 3 different markets, which does not make any sense. So, to answer your question in that lexicon and that vocabulary, yes, stock exchange is a service provider. I would not call it a shared service provider.
Right. So, Zishan, these days a lot of disruptive, technologies happening, and because of the nature of these disruptive technologies, it really affects and challenges the conventional way of business we do. So, do you think it can impact the ongoing concern of an organization? And if yes, how do organizations, respond and manages their threats?
Well, first you have to break down what the concern is. When we are talking about disruptive technologies, you have to see that what disruptive technologies are affecting your business. There might be a very um uh, breakthrough technology regarding thermal imaging, which has nothing to do with the company's product and services. So a disruption might not necessarily can have a direct impact. But if we talk about certain innovations which are happening around the world and which will certainly have an impact, for example, advancements in blockchain have a potential. The smart contract advancement have a potential of disrupting the accounting industry. In fact, it's a very polite term to say it has a potential of disrupting accounting industry. It certainly has, uh, it will affect the accounting industry. So I'll answer the question in two perspectives. One is from the company's perspective and also from the student perspective. From the student perspective, it's not relevant to your paper, but I believe that whoever is listening should know that. So from the company perspective, you see any disruptive technology that has the potential of giving you a competitive advantage. That's the main thing, and or an improved service delivery or improved margin. most of these things are interrelated. But if the disruption has a potential of doing that, then you definitely go for that, considering your own needs. For example, production line, if it was predominantly labor-based, if after the introduction of robots and automation, companies did introduce robotic manufacturing lines on their production floors. It was simply, more competitive. It made sense because the companies are responsible for profitability towards their shareholders. Whatever will impact.
Hi, Zishan, can you hear me? Yeah, we can't hear you. Zishan, can you hear us? Hello, Zishan, can you hear me? Hello.
Hello,
See,
can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
I'm
Right.
really sorry. I'm
No
still
problem.
connected to your phone, but apparently it just decided to censor me for raising the alarm that how, how what side of this. So where did you lost me?
In the start of the question,
Oh my
regarding
God.
that, yeah,
Okay, okay. So this that's a very long thing to catch up.
yeah.
I'll just try
So,
to share the
whatever
key
you want to
points.
summarize with that respect to that question, please.
Again, in a summary, and I'm really sorry you guys missed out on that. What I was saying was that disruptive technologies are and will be adopted by corporates because you see the purpose of a corporate entity is to increase the uh, stakeholders or shareholders investment, the value for money. So they are accountable towards their shareholders, and they will go for any innovation, any technology, any disruption that will give them a competitive advantage, that will improve their margins, that will improve their products line and service line. So companies will adopt these disruptions. Uh, it's only a matter of time and how what is the appetite of the company and how affordable the relevant technology is. So the companies will actually take up uh, you know uh, yeah, audience question. I see that. Yeah, this is how technology plays with human being. They actually did play with me. I was making very crucial points. In fact, the point I was making was more relevant towards students. You see, at the student stage, when you're starting off and you're finalizing your qualification or something, subject to your mortality rate, you have about 40 years of working life ahead of you. And the disruptions that we are seeing right now in analytics side and the blockchain side have or artificial intelligence, they have a potential. In fact, potential is a very polite terms that is used in seminars and everything. It's not a potential, it's a threat. It's an imminent threat. uh, that this uh, that this profession is going to be overridden by technology. So, can you hear me fine? I'm getting a
Yeah,
message
yeah.
that there's a
No, no,
bad
no,
connection.
no, no. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
so
can hear
so
you
I
loud
was
and
saying that
clear.
the students need to make sure that they need to keep up with what is going on in the world, what is affecting their profession, and with regards to our accountancy profession, I would, if I say that in about 20 years there is a very serious threat of redundancy, I would be sort of being generous. So the threat is very much real, and you don't need to get a white paper from NASA or Pentagon to confirm that. What you can do is, I'm sure a lot of students will have some friend or cousin or brother or sister studying computer science. Just have a discussion with them regarding your process of financial statement preparation, the IFRS review, and everything, and just get their view about how this whole thing can be automated. And you'll be surprised that Pakistani student, computer science students, how quickly they can tell you that how you can be made redundant through technology. So I would be lying if I say I didn't mean to scare you, but this is how worried we should be. It's no joke that people like Mark Zuckerberg and the key leaders in technology are talking about universal basic income, because technology will create joblessness in a lot of areas. So that's something to be to contemplate on while we are discussing things.
Right. We have a question from the student Zishan that can you please put some light on what is blockchain?
Mhm. Acha, it's a complicated subject to cover, and one thing is for certain that I will not call myself a blockchain expert. I don't mean to offend somebody who does call themselves a blockchain expert, but I was recently studying some literature from, I believe it's California Institute of Technology, the Caltech, and these guys are where we have cutting edge research on blockchain. They don't call themselves blockchain expert because it's still in newness. The idea is that I'll try to explain in my own layman terms, but I would encourage everybody to explore this idea, and don't believe if anybody says that they're expert in blockchain. Just don't believe it. Only believe the technology experts that are. So the idea is that somebody somewhere starts a chain with a legacy block. That's a first encrypted set of recording information. So it's a ledger concept. You're aware of the ledger concept. It builds upon one transaction upon other. So blockchain is something that is out in the open, but it is immutable. That means nobody can corrupt it, because to modify the blockchain, you need to solve the cryptographic puzzle and everything. So what happens is that it's distributed, uh, and every new transaction is available in all nodes. Every block is a one transaction that is happening, and then based on that encryption technique, you can have smart contracts. So it could be a simple offer from a HR department and being accepted by the candidate. But it's a smart contract. You don't need any paperwork or anything. It's encrypted, so there is only one copy of it in the world, and it is verifiable through cryptography or whatever the protocol of the blockchain is. So the idea is that it's available out in the open, yet it cannot be affected through corruption or anything else. That's the most layman description I can give you. Uh, how it affects us is obviously accounting or any other thing, any profession, any service, any activity that relies upon a track of activities so far. It could be your series of transactions working towards financial statements. It could be a series of your customer relationships evolving continuously, resulting in a customer relationship management system. Or it could be sort of like a thermal nuclear power plant, measurement system. These guys have also a discounted cash flow and everything. I recently found out sensitivity analysis. So whatever that is, it can be transferred into blockchain. So the best part is that it's secure. Traditionally, in order to have that sort of secure system, you have to live in a silo. You are working in one company or one firm where you have top of the line security systems to ensure integrity of whatever the data you're keeping. But then with blockchain, you can be open, yet the integrity can be secure. So that's a very layman definition. I probably would be missing out very key advantages. I would encourage everybody to read some books around it. They're very good literature out there.
Thank you very much for this, Zishan. Also about disruptive technologies in finance. To be specific, there is fintech, which includes blockchain technologies and cryptos. So, being a finance or an accounting student and future business leader, what skills and knowledge you think would be appropriate for students or professional so that students are well versed with its concepts and how this integrates with the overall core finance concepts?
Asha, there are conflicting views on that subject. Uh, First of all, what the students need to keep their mind open about is that you should not uh, तीन जो ये टेक्नोलॉजीज हैं इनको क्लब करके हमेशा नहीं बात करें, फिनटेक, ब्लॉकचेन और क्रिप्टो. असल में ये तीन बजवर्ड्स हैं एंड पीपल लाइक टू यूज देम टुगेदर कि जी ये आ रहा है. अच्छा, उसमें कैसे हम उसको चेंज करेंगे? कुछ लोग 8 घंटे का सेमिनार करा लेते हैं, देन कुछ लोग जो है वो तो 1 घंटे का वेब वो करा लेंगे कि जी ये फिनटेक और ये वो. मीनिंग कीवर्ड जंकी ना बने. पहले तो हमें ये मीनिंग द स्टूडेंट्स नीड टू बी वेरी केयरफुल कि कीवर्ड जंकी नहीं बनना. सिर्फ डेफिनेशन देख के हम एक्सपर्ट बनने नहीं जाएंगे. किसी भी प्रॉपर डिसरप्शन को समझने के लिए उसकी एक्सपर्टीज लेना जरूरी है. उसका जनरल ओवरव्यू से काम नहीं चलेगा हमारे यहाँ. तो खैर दैट्स वन प्रिंसिपल थिंग. तो अलग अलग तीनों को रखते हैं. अब ब्लॉकचेन की थोड़ी बहुत बात की थी, क्रिप्टो की थोड़ी बहुत बात हो चुकी है. क्रिप्टो इज बेसिकली डिजिटल करेंसी. उसकी भी अंडरलाइंग ब्लॉकचेन ही कॉन्सेप्ट होता है कि एवरी कॉइन एक्सचेंज्ड is recorded on a blockchain ledger. तो ये दोनों थोड़े रिलेटेड टॉपिक्स हैं, एप्लीकेशन बहुत डिफरेंट है. थर्ड आपके पास फिर आता है कि जो फिनटेक का कॉन्सेप्ट आता है. Fintech is short for financial technologies. It's usually refer to technological replacements for banks. उसमें कुछ भी हो सकता है. वो आपकी मोबाइल बैंकिंग भी हो सकती है, आपकी कुछ कमर्शियल इंश्योरेंस प्रोवाइडर की एग्रीगेटर भी हो सकते हैं, कुड बी एनीथिंग. सो अकाउंटेंट्स को ये पता होना चाहिए कि फिनटेक इज एन ऑल्टरनेट डिलीवरी मैकेनिज्म. इट एम्स टू रिप्लेस वट एवर इज बीइंग गोइंग ऑन राइट नाउ. आप अगर एसीसी हैं, आप फर्म में जाते हैं या कोई क्लाइंट्स पे जाते हैं या मतलब इंडस्ट्री में जाएं या बैंकिंग साइड पे जाएं, कहीं से भी जाएं, you will be dealing with banks and banking systems and banking services. Uh, Fintech is about taking those services, making them easier to be deployed for people who might not be really tech savvy. और उनके लिए सर्विस प्रोवाइडर बन जाओ तो वो है. Our friends, one of my friend and my mentor earlier, they have a startup. I would not call it a startup, very mature service delivery now, B-Filer. So what it does is that, tax filing is a headache in Pakistan. So they have an app for that, and you can file your returns very easily. But then that is an alternate mechanism for the same service you already have. You can do that on Iris, but it just made it easier for you to do so. Same concept applies on anybody who's coming up with a fintech tag that, okay, I'm a financial service provider. You are, because the big banks, they are not interested in introducing these sort of value-added services and going after the unbanked profession. And this is one of the concerns, because the moment they do, the fintechs become irrelevant. And the example is one of the, I think, virtual credit cards started by Visa. There was one service which was really popular as a fintech, but then Visa just out of the blue started to deliver that service. So if the big players start doing it, then they have obviously the edge over it. So regarding these three technologies, all of them affect finance, not with the threat of replacement like blockchain. Blockchain will have a very pervasive impact, not just on accounting. It's anything which require agreement between two people. It would be public procurement as well. In fact, people are turning towards technological solution of public procurement. Why not on blockchain? So blockchain has a potential of being really useful and possibly uh, replacing traditional financial application. When it starts to replace accountants is when artificial intelligent systems start to modify the blockchains. That's where you get a threat of the accountant being redundant. That is also a very strong possibility now. Okay.
Right. This one question from Ahmad Mughal, Dishan. Is machine learning and data mining part of artificial intelligence?
अच्छा, I'm also a student in that regards. और बल्कि analytics, data science, machine learning और इन सारे topics में I would say कि अभी जितने लोग 60, 63, 62, 61 people who are listening, they should add those items in their list. Okay, after you're done with your ACCA, you have to study these as a subject, not as through YouTube videos or anything, but properly. Uh, because see, machine learning, artificial intelligence is interchangeable terms नहीं है. Artificial intelligence is where I would not have a very textbook definition, because it's not. There are a lot of views on what is intelligence. उसमें normally यानी कि intelligence system को थोड़ा सा, अभी जो recently मैं एक proper data scientist से बात कर रहा था, तो he was describing an example that if a robot is put into a room and all of its sensors are removed, gyro sensor and vision camera, how would it learn to come out of that room? So that is something what the artificial intelligence is. So it's a very complex subject, and but machine learning is a technique. Data mining is also an activity that you perform on data to find some meaning out of data. Machine learning is where you apply some mathematical models to test data to find out if it's giving the right prediction, and then you apply it on on the trained data, and then you apply it on the bigger set of test data, and then get some results out of it. And I'll give you an example, very common, which we implemented through machine learning in IFRS 9 implementation in one of the microfinance banks. And so we use machine learning to train on a subset of the data, and the purpose was to find out what are the common characteristics of borrowers who default on their loans, and when do they default on their loans typically, to find out a pattern, and then see on the bigger scale that how that results in credit impairment overall on the portfolio basis. So these are very different terms. We should not club them together. We should study all of them separately, and we should really study them. We should not just be functionally aware of them. This is not something like vague economic concepts that we should be functionally aware. Accountants need to keep that in their upskilling list of things to do.
Right. Dishan, I have a question for you. It's regarding talent management. So
Mhm.
I believe talent management is a main function of human resources department, which is undoubtedly is one of the important resources organization needs. But it is a separate, a special field of function. So how does a ACCA student or professional contributes to HR and talent management of the organization?
Okay, talent management is something that is, I would say, is a responsibility at all levels of management. It's not just a proprietary domain of HR. Uh, Although HR is in a better position of guiding everybody else in an organization what proper talent management is. So we have to keep that thing in mind. Talent management is not the responsibility of just HR, but HR is in the right position to educate everybody else about talent management. This is the same principle that applies to risk management. And there are a lot of misconceptions out there that risk management is the risk management department's responsibility. And I've seen that discussion in a very large global entity. It's not. Risk management department is an expert in risk management, but the risk management responsibility lies with people who are dealing with activities which will give rise to risk. Just to give an example. So talent management is something that is everybody's responsibility. And where do ACCAs work? ACCAs work either as part of teams, either as part of superiors who are leading teams, or as part of leaders who have multiple teams working under them. So if you're not familiar with the basis of basic talent management, which involves basically getting the right people, retaining the right people, possibly reforming the wrong people, or possibly getting rid of the wrong people. So if you're not familiar with these basics of talent management, then you will lack as a leader. So as a leader, ACCAs or anybody, any other professional, need to be aware of what good talent management entails. I hope that answers partially your question. I did not delve
Right.
into more
No,
nuances of
no,
talent management. Sorry about that.
it,
It's not my
it
diction.
does. No, no, it does. It does. So, if you talk about the current circumstances because of the COVID, a lot of things needed to be changed. The way the business we were doing back in early 2019 or late 2018, everything, the processes, environment, technology, culture, everything is now changed. So it is, I think it is natural that it is a human tendency that change is being pushed back. So, how organizations can manage change and help employees to adapt to this change at a strategic level and across whole organization?
I think this question is a bit old now because we have seen companies adapt to the COVID situation more or less in a better way because the lockdown started about a year, 13 months, possibly 1 year and a couple of weeks in Pakistan. And Pakistan was possibly one of the lowest ranking countries if you think about which promote remote working and everything. But you saw the entire country shut down, and then we recently concluded an ICFR engagement at a very prominent multinational bank without ever meeting the leadership team in person. Obviously, some of my team members were going to the branches or anything, but that's something unthinkable even 1 year earlier in Pakistan. So we've done pretty well, I believe. We are resilient, and so when the situation called for it, people adapted. And I think it has it has arisen new opportunities for professionals. In fact, because अभी भी पूरी तरह से नहीं लेकिन to a larger extent talent hunt has become a bit borderless. You're starting to see technological hirings more and more venture out of their traditional comfort zone. यूएस में जो कंपनियां हायर करती थी प्रोग्रामर्स को, अब वो थोड़ा बहुत तीन चार एक्सपर्टली या टॉप टैलेंट टाइप की वेबसाइट से जो है ना वो ग्लोबल टैलेंट को भी हायर कर रही हैं. एंड दिस फिनोमेना, अगर ये खुदा न खासा वो लोग कहते हैं कोविड इज अ ब्लेसिंग इन डिस्गाइज एज वेल, अगर ये फिनोमेना चेंज होता है तो रिमोट हायरिंग का प्रोसेस जो है ना वो थोड़ा सा और बढ़ेगा और फील्ड्स में आएगा. एंड व्हाई नॉट? If a company in Silicon Valley can have a very good HR manager from Pakistan, why not? If somebody in Saudi Arabia can have a completely 100% remote finance manager sitting in Karachi, why not? So I think not only the companies have sort of adopted properly to this disruption, it has a potential of economies like Pakistan to provide a very niche set of services, replacing a lot of traditional hurdles and getting hired in those markets.
Right. So, why is project management more and more important and strategic, and why are organizations spending more and more money on projects? How does a project contribute to the overall success or the financial stability of the business? How important it is, the project management?
देखिए प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट जो है ना वो उसको ड्यू रिस्पेक्ट बहुत इतनी नहीं दी जाती, पाकिस्तान में नहीं दी जाती लेकिन ग्लोबली दी जाती है. अगर आप एक प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजर की पोजीशन पे हैं और आपके पास पीएमपी की सर्टिफिकेशन नहीं है तो यू विल नॉट बी कंसिडर्ड फिट फॉर प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट पोजीशन इन सर्टेन कंट्रीज. लेकिन प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट is a science of scientifically arranging the project activities, tracking them, knowing the bottlenecks. वो कहते हैं कि program 60% is planning and 40% is execution. So the planning has to be thorough. You should always have a bird's eye view of the whole project. You should always know what problems and oversights we are facing, and then you should always know whether I will be able to deliver the project on time or not. This is something that is yet to attain its right level of appreciation in Pakistan. People are not really very appreciative about structured project management approaches. But studying those approaches certainly have its weightages when you're talking to people sitting in US, Canada, UK, who have the appreciation of formal task-based project management skills. And no matter how technically qualified you are, if you don't have general project management skills, that means you will not be able to possibly plan for a lot of surprises. You will probably not be able to bring your project on track if it derails, and a lot of things will take you by surprise. So that's why good corporations want you to academically study project management and be very respectful of the nuances that are there. Hope that answered.
Right. Thank you. Yes, I did. Dishan, there's one more question. What is the role, of finance in project management, and how an accountant, can help assist, CEO in managing a project? How
Well,
does that accountant fits in that project management with respect to assisting the top level leadership?
if you are familiar with the basics of project management and your organization does not have dedicated project management resources, then obviously accountant is a very good position because we do have appreciation of the breakdown of the tasks. Because see, accountants deal with historical transaction. Eventually, all transactions come into the system as being recorded. So we do have functional awareness of what is the journey behind that transaction because you get all the paperwork at the end, ledger, meaning all the everything. So when we are doing project management, accountants have a better vision about the different interactions between departments and how a key activity is going to flow. So if we don't have a dedicated project management function, then accountants can certainly support project management to their CEOs. But if terms like WBS, uh, throughput, uh, what are the other key terminologies? Bottlenecks of the projects and completion, burn rate, everything. If these terminologies are alien, then I don't think so that any accountant should start venturing into the project management, because either educate yourself, understand what is project management, be able to do it scientifically. You don't need to be an expert on it, but at least you should know how to go about it. Then you should definitely offer, because you have a better perspective on things than other departments.
Right. So my last question for you for today's session, Dishan, is there's a lot of talk about the data analytics nowadays, right? And which is a different field in terms of skill sets required from an individual. So if a person is coming from a finance background, the professional accountancy background, so how can synergies can be created with data analytics and performance dashboard?
Again, and I'm not. This is not my view. I'm quoting a renowned data science expert कि अकाउंट्स के जो लोग हैं उनको ब्लॉकचेन की तरफ जाना चाहिए, और फिर उसके बाद डेटा एनालिटिक्स साइंस की तरफ भी उन्होंने इशारा किया. तो दिस इज समथिंग दैट शुड बी देयर. एंड डेटा एनालिटिक्स स्किल सेट जो है उसके लिए जो चाहिए वो अकाउंटेंट्स के पास सटनली होता है. थोड़ा एक एक्यूमेन चाहिए होता है कि प्रोग्रामिंग उसमें इन्वॉल्व होती है थोड़ी बहुत. प्रोग्रामिंग के लिए मेरे ख्याल से सबका एक ओपन माइंड होना चाहिए. यू नो एक प्रिंसिपल है कि नॉट बीइंग एबल टू कोड इज अ हैंडीकैप. ये प्रिंसिपल मीनिंग आई एम वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग बिलीवर ऑफ दिस स्टेटमेंट कि ऐसा नहीं है कि वी कैन नॉट प्रोग्राम, सो दिस इज वन स्किल दैट वी डोंट हैव, वी हैव गॉट प्रोग्रामर्स फॉर दैट. नॉट बीइंग एबल टू कोड इज सर्टेनली अ हैंडीकैप. और पाइथन का यूल बी अमेज्ड, हम लोग डेटा रैंगलिंग करते हैं एक्सेल बेस्ड. तो one thing that would require 1.5 hour of wrestling with the big data in Excel would take about 3, 4, 5 lines of code in Python, and you'll get everything done instantly. तो वो स्किल सेट जो है वो उसमें अकाउंटेंट्स के पास एक्यूमेन थोड़ा सा डोमेन एक्सपर्टीज होती है. डेटा साइंस में दो तीन चीजें होती हैं. वो डोमेन एक्सपर्टीज एक चीज है, आई थिंक टेक्नोलॉजी एक और चीज है, और दूसरी मैथ्स एंड स्टेटिस्टिक्स होती है. अकाउंटेंट्स के पास डोमेन नॉलेज होती है, मैथ स्टेटिस्टिक्स की बेसिक अवेयरनेस होती है, और प्रोग्रामिंग के लिए अपना एक एक्यूमेन खोलना पड़ता है. तो वी कैन स्टडी. बस वो है कि स्टडी जो है वो प्रॉपर स्टडी हो. लाइक अगर यू हैव एकेडमिक प्रोग्राम्स, उसको रिसर्च करके प्रॉपर डेटा साइंस की तरफ, अगर डेटा एनालिटिक्स वगैरह की तरफ जाएंगे, तो वो स्किल सेट होना चाहिए. And that is one of the skill sets that should be in the radar of accountancy students to future proof their careers. So no, that would what I would share. It's certainly something that ACCS should keep it in their checklist afterwards. Is one of the things to do.
Right. Just wanted to share one thing with these students. When you talk about the data analytics, right? So you use different tools to deep dive the data, to dissect the data, to understand, right? So one tool which you can use, which I'm using nowadays, it's called Microsoft Power BI. It's a very good, powerful tool to analyze, to dissect the data. Maybe if one of you is interested in really, deep diving the data, so Microsoft Power BI can be one of the good tool which can be used for mining data, to produce good data insights. So one last question, if we take from the student's question is, as a Muslim student studying ACCA, how important is it for us, to gain knowledge on Islamic finance?
Sorry, I was okay. So Islamic finance is a specialization. First of all, let's agree on that. It is a specialization, or and students can opt to study Islamic finance. It's one of the most rapidly growing emerging form of finance in the world. And I'm sure if you read the literature that is out there, there's a lot of development that is also going on. So I believe it could be my personal opinion, but it's something still quite niche. So you know students can opt to study it, and there's a good promising career. My good friends are at a senior position in Islamic banks, at a leadership position. So it's a good route
for accountancy professionals, but it's still something very niche. I would not I would recommend data science, blockchain to be studied by all accountants. I would not possibly say that Islamic finance is something that should be studied by all accountants. Functional awareness should definitely be there, because if you're sitting on the management side and you have personal beliefs aside, as in the market competitive business, you should be able to evaluate two products. So if you're a company and you want to finance your business, you should be able to compare that what are the benefits of going either way, and what are the contractual leverages that possibly Islamic finance offers, which other modes of financing do not offer, or possibly there's some other way around. So you should have functional awareness, but I would not necessarily recommend studying it in detail, like the other recommendations I made.
Right. So, just thank you very much, Zishan, for taking out your time and sharing your knowledge and vast experience with our student. Definitely, I believe that all our student will be benefit from today's session. So, thank you again, and inshallah, we'll try to engage you in the future session as well. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for having me.